Sometimes the deepest wounds aren't carved by strangers, but by the people we swore to love forever. We thought our marriage could survive anything: poverty, illness, even loss. But when grief came for us in the cruelest way, I made a choice that shattered everything we had built. It wasn't just betrayal, it was an escape from the unbearable silence between us. And when the truth surfaced, it didn't just break his heart. It broke us both forever. This is the story of how losing a child led to losing each other. We were young when we married, full of promises and dreams. Life wasn't perfect, but it was ours. We had a tiny apartment, cheap furniture, and a shared belief that love was enough. When I found out I was pregnant, our world suddenly felt brighter. He painted the nursery himself, even though the paint fumes gave him headaches. He read books about fatherhood at night while I drifted to sleep. We both imagined a future filled with bedtime stories, first steps, and birthday candles. But fate is cruel in ways no one warns you about. The pregnancy started strong, but somewhere in the second trimester, things began to unravel. Doctor visits turned into hospital stays. Fear crept into our conversations, though neither of us wanted to admit it out loud. And then, one night, it happened. The pain, the panic, the ambulance ride. Hours later, we were told the unthinkable. Our baby was gone before ever taking a breath. I don't remember much after that. Just the sterile smell of the hospital, the weight of emptiness inside me, and the look on his face. He cried only once, holding my hand, before burying his grief under silence. I, on the other hand, was drowning in it. Every corner of our home reminded me of what we had lost. The nursery door remained shut, as if opening it would release a flood I couldn't contain. We grieved differently. He returned to work, throwing himself into endless hours. I stayed home, surrounded by memories and shadows. I wanted him to talk, to cry with me, to share the burden. But instead, we became strangers living under the same roof. He thought silence was strength. I thought it was abandonment. That distance between us grew, invisible but unrelenting. Grief has a way of making time feel distorted. Days bled into nights, weeks into months. I found myself searching for comfort anywhere I could find it. At first, it was harmless: online forums for mothers who had experienced loss, late-night walks, distractions that dulled the ache. But soon, something darker filled the void. There was a man at work, someone who knew nothing of my pain but noticed me when I felt invisible at home. He asked how I was doing, not just casually, but with genuine curiosity. I found myself opening up, first about small things, then about the grief that consumed me. He listened. He didn't try to fix it, didn't shut me down with silence. In those moments, I felt seen again. It wasn't love. It wasn't even passion at first. It was an escape, a fragile lifeline I clung to when my marriage felt like quicksand. I told myself it was innocent, that it didn't mean anything. But grief is slippery, and guilt rarely arrives before the damage is done. The affair began slowly, quietly. A lingering touch on the arm, an invitation to coffee, a moment where loneliness blurred into intimacy. I hated myself every step of the way, but I kept going. Each stolen moment felt like breathing after months of suffocation. But when I returned home, the guilt would claw at me. I'd watch my husband sleeping, his face worn from exhaustion, and wonder how I had become the kind of person I once swore I'd never be. I justified it in cruel ways. I told myself he had left me first, not with another person, but with his silence, his refusal to share the grief that was destroying us. But deep down, I knew the truth. My betrayal wasn't about him. It was about me trying to escape a pain I couldn't bear to face. The truth never stays buried for long. One evening, he came home earlier than usual. I was in the shower, and my phone buzzed on the nightstand. He never snooped, but something must have felt off. Later, I found him sitting in the dark, my phone in his hand, the screen glowing with the evidence of my betrayal. His face was unreadable at first, stone still, almost calm. But when his eyes met mine, I saw everything: the heartbreak, the rage, the disbelief. He didn't yell. He didn't throw things. He simply asked one question, his voice breaking: "Why?" And I had no answer that could undo what I had done. He walked out that night, slamming the door so hard it echoed like a gunshot. Days turned into weeks without a word. I tried calling, texting, begging for forgiveness, but the silence between us became permanent. For the first time, I understood the weight of silence, not as abandonment, but as the sharp edge of consequences. When we finally did speak, it was in a lawyer's office. The paperwork sat between us, a cold summary of a love story turned tragedy. He didn't look at me, not once. And I couldn't blame him. I had taken the grief we both carried and twisted it into something unforgivable. That day, I realized something devastating. Losing our baby had broken us, but my betrayal had buried us. Time has passed since then, but the weight of my choices never truly leaves me. I think often of what could have been, our child's laughter filling the apartment, bedtime routines, the life we dreamed of. Instead, I live with silence of a different kind, one that comes from knowing I destroyed the last fragile thread holding us together. People say betrayal is about desire, but that isn't always true. Sometimes it's about grief, loneliness, and the desperate need to feel alive when everything inside feels dead. But knowing that doesn't erase the pain it caused. I lost my child, my marriage, and the person who once looked at me with nothing but love. And in trying to escape my grief, I created a new one I'll carry forever. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this: silence in grief can feel unbearable, but betrayal only deepens the wound. If you're hurting, speak. If you're lost, reach out. Don't let sorrow turn you into someone you don't recognize. Because once trust is broken, once love is betrayed, there's no going back. And so I ask you, the person listening right now, if you were faced with unbearable loss, how would you choose to survive it? Would you face the silence, or would you risk everything just to feel alive again?